Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderocker. Welcome to WowBiz, Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. As a person who's interested in growing their business, there's one word that kind of encapsulates the entire thing, and that word is build. We're going to talk about building today. Thanks for joining me here on WowBiz, Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderocker, and by the way, before we introduce you to our first guest having to do with building, I want to mention our sponsors. We're brought to you by Curzon Promotional Graphics. That's C-U-R-Z-O-N, Curzon Promotional Graphics. Please contact them first if you're thinking about getting some creative ideas, you need some graphics materials of all kinds, from big signs to small graphics. Please contact Curzon Promotional Graphics. And then Alpha Tech One is our secondary sponsor. They do an incredible thing. If your computer needs some assistance, it's not working very well, kind of sluggish, they will come to your home or your office and pick it up, take it back, and get it fixed for you. AlphaTech1.com. Please make sure you check them out. We're very grateful to have those people involved with our program. All right, we're going to get back to build and building your future and talking a little bit about literally construction right here on WowBiz, Nebraska. And that's why I'm going to introduce you to Dave Rosacker. Dave, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you being here. Dave, you're a veteran in the local construction and management industry. Why don't you just give us a quick tab of how you define yourself and what you've been doing the last 30, 40 years, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, the word build really says it. It says it all. That,
Yep.
That's our entire focus. We are a owner-focused, fee-based construction management firm.
All right, now let me just say that again. Owner-focused, which means you're kind of working with the owners.
Correct. All
right. Fee-based, you stick that right in early on so that we all know you're not a commission-based company, right? Kind of like the insurance industry in a way there. Yeah, and then what was the third part that you said? Fee-based.
Owner-focused.
Okay, all right.
Construction management firm. So
okay.
We like to take the owners, we have a passion for this industry that we like to protect our owners throughout the whole process.
Right.
Which is a very unusual process for most people. They don't build frequently. And
well,
so
yeah.
they
you might build one $5 or $10 million building in your life.
Correct.
You know.
And so it's something that they're not normally familiar with. And so we like to guide them through the process.
Yes.
And protect their interests from the very inception of it to the final entering the key in the door to walk in the door.
Okay, so this is a classic consulting service, kind of a value-added consulting role.
Yes.
Okay, outstanding. Now, what makes you qualified to do this? Let's back up and say, what is a guy who's done this pretty much his entire career? Where did you start? Did you wake up one day and say, I want to know everything there is to know about constructing a building? Or did you work out in the field? Or what'd you do?
Well, I worked, I came from a small town.
Yeah.
And so when I went to college, I liked drawing. So I started in architecture, but
okay.
Being an outdoor type guy, I found that sounded to me a little too restrictive. And so when I found out that there was a degree available in construction management that blended engineering and business, I felt that was a better career for me so I could be out and do things. So.
But you also do have some skill in terms of the drawing and the conceptualizing it initially.
Right. And so, of course, the training, but you have to understand how to take a two-dimensional drawing and create it in your mind before you can build it in person.
Right, right.
And so you have to understand how that works.
Yeah, that's a creative process as well. I appreciate the fact that you're a creative person, but you're also a tangible, kind of hands-on detail person. Yeah. It's a very interesting combination. Now, let's take the big picture. Over the course of 40 years, here in the Nebraska area, what have you seen that kind of stands out in the construction industry? What are you seeing that has changed? For instance, the design-build paradigm has emerged. Why don't you explain that to our viewers? A lot of people may not really know what that means.
The traditional methodology would be for an architect to draw the set of drawings, then they send it out to multiple general contractors to bid it, and then normally the lowest bidder is selected, and then they build the building for them.
Right.
Then, as you mentioned, the design-build came along, where there's an expertise that's available on the design side, but there's also an expertise available on the construction side. When you can bring those two together, then you get the benefits of both. So you don't have something that's designed that is really too difficult to be built. or too expensive to be built.
I see, interesting. And is that really changing everything? Is that what everybody is doing now, or not?
Well, I would say that with the advancement, I would say, of the technologies and also the techniques that are available through the construction management and general construction industry, it's becoming more of a professional service as well, because then you work in collaboration with the architect more often, and so I think the industry, or the marketplace, if you will, is starting to recognize the value of both.
Okay, all right, excellent. Now, if somebody said, I want to know roughly now, not in too much detail, how many steps and phases? Once it's decided there is money, we do have a plan that we kind of like, how many steps or phases is involved in constructing a commercial building, a 3 or 4 story office building?
Well, from the very inception, if you would, obviously there's a pro forma that's already developed. If it's a business situation, that validates the need for it, and they start to defining what that need is. Then they bring in the design. So that's the next phase. You know, the conception of the financial side, then the conception of the physical side.
Got it.
And then as that goes through, that's usually 2 or 3 stages to refine that design to the point where it's finalized. And at that point, then the contractor in the traditional method is brought in, and then the construction phase, and then the move-in phase. Those are the broadest phases that we have.
Okay, and somebody's got to get the materials and get them on the site. Right? Then we got to get the people, and some work for the GC, but then they have got to involve subcontractors as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that phase, kind of in the field?
Okay, as in the old days, there were a lot more broad, I guess, disciplines that people had, and so today the skill sets are a lot more tight of what they're good at, and technology has changed, so the technology is more specific to different things.
Okay.
So
now, specialists, a lot of specialists.
A lot of specialists. So it's not unusual to have 30 or 40 different companies involved in a whole project.
Really?
So that they each have their own little segments. So what happens is our project activity really becomes almost like the conductor of an orchestra. We have all these different instruments out there that we have to bring in at the right time and get them to do what they're supposed to do, and then send them back out.
That's quite a choreography that you've got to pull together. Are there problems all the time with these people? They're not showing up, or they don't do it right, or whatever. I mean, is there a lot of problems in the field that have to be solved, or generally it flows pretty smoothly?
Well, I mean, it's
really, it's a
really
broad question.
Yeah, if it was that smooth, they wouldn't need me.
Right.
But
let's hope it doesn't get too smooth, right?
That's right. Obviously, there are so many different moving parts, different manufacturers and distributors, and then the people in the field that are actually physically doing the work, orchestrating all of those schedules together and making them happen on schedule. Obviously, things can happen. It can be a transmission, or
I would think a lot of things bad could happen.
Then you have to realize it's really a manufacturing process. One time, that'll never be repeated for that building. Yeah. And then it also is out in the weather. Yeah. And so you're subjected to everything else that goes on. So it's like manufacturing, but with a lot more variables.
You know, this is fascinating, and I would like to go deeper in it, but I want to hear about your personal story. One day did you wake up and say, I'm really good at this, and I want to enjoy doing guiding and choreographing the development of these buildings? So what was the realization? What triggered that?
Well, you know, you're always improving. So I'm a kind of a perfectionist, so I'm probably never good, you know, or I'm just saying I'm the best, but I'm learning every day. But obviously over a 40-plus year experience, you learn how to do certain things. Sure. Techniques change, methodologies change, and so you have to be current with all of those things.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute.
But it's something that really, at the end of the day, there is a big technical aspect that obviously is involved, because there's technical activities that take place. But at the end of the day, it's an organization of people. Everything that has to happen on a site has to be done by a person. Yeah. And so our job is to make sure that all those people are pointed in the same direction, motivated, and that they understand that the owner needs to have what we've
Right.
had designed for us to build. So.
Dave, is there miscommunication a lot between all these different people, and they're all working for different companies and so on? Do they get in each other's hair, or is there, again, fairly smooth interaction between them?
Well, people are people, and fortunately we have, as all of the society has, is we've got a lot better communication tools than we used to have.
Yes.
When I first started, all we had is a phone on the desk and mail.
Right.
And so the time that it takes in those days, even
Yes.
to get a letter out of your office, because the secretary had to type it.
Yes.
Most of us didn't know how to type.
Right.
And so everything's a lot more immediate. Well, all that brings a lot of efficiencies, but it also brings a lot of miscommunications, because it's very easy if something happens on the job site and it's messed up or whatever, it's really easy to let your emotions react.
Yeah.
And so you send out an immediate email without thinking out, or a text or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So through that, we see more miscommunications there. There's less thought before a communication is issued than there was in the past. And so sometimes we have to deal with those.
Sure. Kind of as we wrap up, this has been fascinating. What would be your one comment to a build, not a builder, but a company that wants to build a new building? What would be the one piece of advice or a suggestion that you would make to them, besides hire me to orchestrate the process? But what don't they know that would be much more helpful if they just understood one thing?
Well, I think that, whether it's me or someone else, that the team, to be complete, needs the architect, needs the financing side, and it needs the construction side. If you bring all three of those together,
Yes.
you can balance the specific situation for the owner. Every owner is different. You may be building the exact same building or type of building,
Yeah.
but every owner is going to be. I mean, if you and I both went out to buy a Cadillac, we
Sure.
wouldn't buy the same one.
Sure.
And it's the same way for a building. And so the more information that can be provided to the owner while this process is ongoing, the more likely it is that when he gets to the end, he has exactly the product that he wants.
So a flow of constant communication or information to the owner,
Correct.
so they know where we're at, what's going, what's next, and all that.
Correct.
Yeah. Outstanding. Well, your organization is called R&A. It's out in Northwest Omaha. You've been doing it for an awful long time. And you're working increasingly in commercial or residential or whatever comes along.
Occasionally commercial, but multifamily commercial, all kinds of commercial and industrial we've done over the
Outstanding.
years.
Okay,
12
beautiful.
states.
Well, Dave Rosacker, thank you so much for joining us and just letting us peek into your world, because it's a complicated world. There's a lot of players. Bringing them together, getting them to work together cohesively is not a little thing. And if I were owner of a project like this and getting started on something, I would want somebody like you to provide that objective oversight and just keep everybody moving in the same direction. I think I'd probably sleep better at night
You should be able
if
to.
you don't know what I mean. So thanks so much for coming,
you.
Dave.
Thank you.
My pleasure.